God's blessed. All praise to the Most High. So it's another edition today, Man Up Monday. So it's a continuation from last week. And today we're going to go into, like I said, heliocentric. Good. So today we're going to go into the solar system, the fourth day, the creation, the greater lights, as well as going into the fifth day. We're going to leave the sixth day for next week, all right? So let's start off with Genesis chapter 1. Verse 14.
The book of Genesis, chapter 1 and verse 14. And God said, let there be lights in the firmament of heaven to divide the day from the night. And let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years. And let them be for lights in the firmament of heaven to give light upon the earth. And it was so. And God made two great lights.
So notice how verse 16 differentiates from verse 3. Verse 3, read verse 3 real quick.
Verse 3, and God said, let there be light, and there was light.
So this light was different from the light in verse 16. This light is two great light. As you're going to see, it's going to the sun as well as the moon. Now the light in verse 3 was a natural illuminate that God was able to illuminate through the elements. So this light in verse 16 is going to the sun and the moon. Read verse 16 again.
Verse 16, and God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day.
So the greater light to rule the day is talking about the sun. Read.
And the lesser light to rule the night.
And the lesser light is talking about the moon. Read.
He made the stars also.
Read.
And God set them in the firmament of heaven to give light upon the earth.
And God set these two great lights in the firmament of heaven. Today, scientists call it space. That's why last week we went to 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. It says, who imposeth? How do they oppose God? Through their science, through their technology. They set themselves up as God and sit in a temple as God and worshiping him. Why? Because instead of taking what the Bible says for to be facts and to be doctrine, the scientists say, no. It's not based upon any scientific evidence. Nothing that we can prove. Because why the white man says, if we can't prove it, if we didn't see it, then it's not real. Anytime we actually have evidence, biblical evidence, prophetic evidence, we was able to prophesy, we're able to prove the Bible's true through the transatlantic slave trade. Deuteronomy 28 shows our conditions, shows us going to captivity, our oppressions, mass incarceration, black codes, Jim Crow, everything within our history, the Bible proves it. But for all of a sudden, we get to the beginning of how the earth was created. God is showing you how you create earth verbatim and step in order. But the white man says, no, it's not based upon scientific evidence. We got to conduct an experiment to prove whether or not this God that you're talking about is actually the things that he's documented is actually true. Now, let's go to 2 Ezra, chapter 6, verse 45.
2 Ezra, chapter 6, verse 45. Upon the fourth day, thou commandest that the sun should shine, and the moon give her light.
So the fourth day that the sun should shine, which is the greater light, read, and the moon shall give her light, the lesser light. Go on.
And the stars should be in order, and gavest them a charge to do service unto man that was to be made.
So it says, and gave the sun and the moon a charge to do service to man. Get me that in Jeremiah 31, verse 35. So the sun and the moon was created on the fourth day, the two great lights outside of the light in Genesis chapter 1, verse 3. Remember, that light was completely different from the sun and moon. So now it says to give service to man. Read Jeremiah 31, verse 35 now.
Jeremiah chapter 31, verse 35. Thus saith the Lord, which giveth the sun for a light by day, and the ordinances of the moon and of the stars for a light by night.
So the sun was given to us for a light by day, and then the ordinance of the moon and of the stars for a light by night. That's why it says it was given to the service for man, not given to the service for man to worship. So you have certain nations, just like in Christianity. Christianity is the base of the worship of the sun god, going back to ancient Babylonian custom of Nimrod being the unconquered sun. So you have these three deities, Nimrod, Semiramis, and Tammuz. Nimrod represents the sun god in which Christianity bases whole religion off of. And you have Semiramis is based upon the moon god. So these two great lights, the other nations took them to be gods in which they worship. Now today, we take religions such as Christianity. Can you pull the image up real quick with the image of Caesar, the beast, the prisoner, with the sun behind them. And I'm going to show you also Islam. So the lights, the sun was given to us to serve us for day, to give us light by day, and the moon to serve us to give us light by night. That's why the Arabs start worshiping them. They worship the moon god Hubal because why? At nighttime when they traveled in the desert, because during the day it was too hot. So they travel at night. And they used the moon for a light, so they started worshiping the moon. And that's why you see the image of Caesar. Always with the sun behind him. That's why they worship on what? Sunday in commemoration of the sun god, Nimrod, or we call Baal. Caesar, Christianity, Sunday, sun worship. Now let's get the crescent moon. So these lights was created for the service of man, not to worship them and create religions based upon them. Get me that now. And Sirach, give me Wisdom of Solomon chapter 13.
Wisdom of Solomon chapter 13 and verse 1.
And that's why they worship the crescent moon and the star. Read.
Surely vain are all men by nature, who are ignorant of God.
Who are ignorant of God. Because he said he found out all the way of knowledge and then given to his servant Jacob. All the nations are ignorant of God. Nobody has a direct, close relationship with God. That's why they start to worship the sun, the moon, the stars. They create gods out of meteorites, out of stones, out of rocks, out of elephants. They worship all creatures but the one true creator. Because God never dealt with it. He says he showed his word unto Jacob. He have not dealt with any nation. And as for his judgments, they have not known them. Go on.
And could not, out of the good things that are seen, know him that is.
Out of the good things that are seen, they cannot know the sun, the moon, the stars, the planets, the earth, the water, the trees, the oxygen that we breathe, the sand, the dirt. They can't know by the things that we see. We know that there's an intelligent life form, but they can't define it as an actual God. They can't define that this actual man that created all these things. A celestial power, the omnipotent power that created all these things, which we call God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They said, no. God didn't create these things. All these things just happened to come out of nothing. There's an expansion of the universe that came from atoms. Then you ask yourself, how did atoms come about? But with the dumb scientists, what they would do is if we question them, how did atoms come about, they would question us and say, how did God come about? They will say, how do you come about? How are you born? How are you created? Same way you're going to be destroyed by the same God that created you, the same God that's going to destroy you. So read that.
Neither by considering the works did they acknowledge the work master.
Neither by the works, the creation of the earth, the creation of the sun, the moon, the stars, and everything that we see. Neither can we acknowledge that God created all these things, that he's the workmaster behind this. Read.
But deemed either fire or wind or the swift air or the circle of stars.
Or the circle of stars, read.
Or the violent water.
Or the circle of stars going into, and that's why they take you have your horoscopes. You got your Pisces, your Cancers, your Sagittarius, your Gemini, all the 12 zodiac signs that they take and they worship them as gods. Go on.
Or the violent water. Or the lights of heaven, to be the gods which govern the world.
Or the lights of heaven, which they take to be gods that govern the world. That's why they make a god of everything. They make Aries. What are some gods? Mars, Venus. They make these the gods that govern the world, rather than one true God that made them. Or they trying to bring up some type of scientific theory to explain life, and not for nothing, science is a god. Science is a religion. That's why you have something called Scientology. You have Tom Cruise as well as Will Smith was caught up in that religion, because science is a religion. It's a faith-based religion. Science is based on faith. Why? Because it's not based on actual factual evidence, observable evidence that's proven based upon scientific experiment. Nobody was back then to document and record the creation or expansion of the universe on atoms colliding with each other and creating some type of intelligent life form and then forming the earth, an organism on the earth, and going through the evolutionary process. No man was back then to record that or even carbon dating. They said that the earth is 1 million years old. But in order to say something is that old, you need evidence that was back during that time. There's somebody keeping records. They cannot dictate or they cannot document how old the earth truly is if nobody was recording back during that time. The Bible tells us how old the earth is. The Bible tells us how long it took God to create the earth. It said he created in what? 6 days, and the 7th day he rests. In God's time, it took him 6 days. In our time, it's 6,000 years to create it. On the 7,000th year, he rests. Go on.
Verse 3, with whose beauty, if they being delighted took them to be gods, let them know how much better the Lord of them is. For the first author of beauty hath created them.
For the first author of beauty had created the beautiful things that we see. That's why Eve was deceived. The first sin was idolatry. Eve, it says, one to be desired, one that's beautiful. What do you think Eve, what do you think they was worshiping that back then? The sun, the moon, the stars, the constellation, one that's able to make one wise. Why? Because there is, on the left side of things, there is wisdom in that. That's why you have a lot of black women, primarily, like I said, growing up. They'll always say, oh, what's your zodiac sign? You ever had, she'll say, what's your zodiac sign? You'd be like, I don't know. She'd be like, oh, based upon, you said, what year? I'm telling you, this is what, I didn't care. But women who come up to me, she was like, what's your zodiac sign? I said, I don't know. I don't pay attention to that stuff. When were you born? Okay, I was born here. Oh, you're Cancer, you're Gemini, you're Sagittarius. We don't get along. He said, oh, that's why your characteristics like this. That's why you have these type of personality traits. I said, no, you created that and put that on me. But you have, when you go to, now, there is wisdom in astronomy and astrology. That's the left side of Satan. That's why you had Reagan. I think Reagan, he had an advisor, I believe, a female advisor that was an astrologist, an astronomer. That they used they used astrologists, astronomers to read the signs of the time. That's why they find wisdom in these things. They base their wisdom, their witchcraft, their signs, their horoscopes. There is wisdom within that, but on the opposite side. That's on Satan's side. God says, don't be dismayed at the stars of heaven. But the heathen are dismayed, because why? God doesn't deal with them just like he deals with us. God deals with us through prophecy, through the prophets, the scriptures that he wrote. Satan deals with the heathen through astronomy. Get that real quick. Isaiah chapter 47. See if you can find that. Reagan's advisor. You have to pull that up. Read that.
Isaiah chapter 47, verse 13. Thou art wearied in the multitude of thy counsels. Let now the astrologers, the stargazers, the monthly prognosticators stand up and save thee from these things that shall come upon thee.
So God says, you're weary in a multitude of their counsel. Why do you think they have NASA, Space Force, they had astronomers, astrologists. They have a whole government based upon the stars, the constellation. Why? Because that's how they get their wisdom. That's the opposite side of God. Satan deals with them through the worshiping of the planets, the constellation, the stars. He speaks to them that way. You got it?
Ronald Reagan actually used this San Francisco astrologist to make presidential decisions. Joan Quigley said she could have predicted when the president got shot.
You see? Just like we can predict certain events that's going to happen. You see the bishop, the deacons. We're able to go into the scriptures and predict the famine to come. We're able to go into the scriptures to predict our persecution, the war, our slave trade. But on the opposite side of Satan, they're able to use the astronomy, the astrologists going into witchcraft. That's the wizardry. That's the witchcraft. They use the stars to predict certain things. It gives them wisdom. That's why it says, one that give me that in Genesis 3. It's called sorcery. Now read on. I want to go down the article. See if there's anything else in it. Read that. Read it. Yep. Read on.
Ronald Reagan nearly got through his presidency without his secret advisor exposed. but Donald Reagan, Reagan's chief of staff until he was ousted amid the Iran-Contra scandal, spilled in his 1988 book, For the Record, what he viewed as the most closely guarded domestic secret.
Now go to the New York Post.
The New York Post ran a story with the headline, Astrologer Runs the White House.
Astrologer runs the what?
The White House.
Go on.
And the disclosure became fodder for jokes in Washington.
Now go back to Isaiah 47, verse 13.
Isaiah chapter 47, verse 13. Thou art wearied in the multitude of thy counsels. Let now the astrologers.
It says, thou art weary in a multitude of thy counsels. Why? Because astrologers run the White House. They give them wisdom. They give them counsels on how to move based upon the constellations. That's why I say you're weary in a multitude of thy counsels and by thy sorceries. They use sorceries, witchcraft to predict things. That's how they communicate with Satan. The left side of things, we communicate through the scriptures. We're able to predict and prophesy based upon what God gave to the prophets, such as Isaiah, Ezekiel, Jeremiah. They're able to predict things and prophesy based upon what the stars, what they're able to read with the stars. That's why they get paid so much. That's why they have a complete faction, a separate part of the government just dealing with space, just dealing with NASA, SpaceX. They spend billions of dollars, trillions of dollars. Go on.
Let now the astrologers, the stargazers, the monthly prognosticators stand up and save thee from these things that shall come upon thee.
So God says, let these stargazers, your astrologers, your counselors, save you from the destruction that's coming. Now, go to Genesis chapter 3.
Genesis chapter 3,
verse 6.
Verse 6. And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food,
when Eve saw that the information that she was receiving from the serpent, that wicked, treacherous, cunning man, that deceitful man, that the information that he was teaching her was good to consume, was good to learn, read.
And that it was pleasant to the eyes.
It was pleasant. Think about it. Food, a tree being pleasant to the eyes. What's pleasant to the eyes? When you go outside at night, what do you do all the time? You stare up, stargazing. You look at the stars. You look at the Milky Way. You look at the planets. You say, wow, that's beautiful. Look at that, Daddy. Look at the stars. Look at the moon. It's pleasant. It's beautiful to the eyes. When you see the billions of stars up in the sky, it's pleasant. It's beautiful. Go on.
And a tree was, and a tree to be desired to make one wise.
And a tree to be desired, meaning this information that she was receiving, she was able to make one wise. Not wise in terms of the commandments, because the commandments made us wise. But on the flip side, on the opposite side of God, the left side of God, Satan's side, they deal with sorcery. This sorcery is going to the astrologies, the astronomers, going to the witchcraft, the reading of the constellation, the worshiping of the planets. That's why all of your planets, they made gods. All your gods are based upon planetary worship. Give me that in 2 Kings chapter 23, verse 5. Time and time out, God's constantly going into the worshiping of planets, how we worship the planets, how we worship the sun, the moon, the stars. And all the gods that they worship is based upon the constellation. One to make wise. That's how they get their wisdom. How do you think they do their farming? The farmer's almanac is based upon what? It's based upon the moon. When do they plant? They know when to plant during the full moon. Or it's the dark moon. They plant because why? They say that's when the water, the tide, on the full moon is when the tide's at its highest. And they say you plant it during that time because that's when the water in the soil actually would germinate the seed a lot faster. Even when I went to a nursery, and a lady told me when to plant my grass seeds. She said to plant it on 2 weeks prior to the full moon. Plant it during the dark moon to give it time so 2 weeks afterwards, when the full moon sets, then it's going to germinate a lot quicker. So she always says, when you plant your grass, when you plant your seeds, always plant on a dark moon because 2 weeks later, it's going to speed up the process. Go on.
2 Kings chapter 23, verse 5. And he put down the idolatrous priests, whom the kings of Judah had ordained to burn incense in the high places in the cities of Judah and in the places round about Jerusalem. Them also that burn incense unto Baal, to the sun, and
unto Baal. Baal is Nimrod. They burn incense, the priests, the Levites burn incense unto Baal, Nimrod, unto the sun. Go on.
And to the moon.
And to the moon, Semiramis, the moon god. Or the Ishmaelites or the Arabs today worship as Hubal, or the moon god. Go on.
And to the planets.
And to the what?
Planets.
That's why you have Mars, the god of war. You have Venus. You have Mercury. They worship the planets as gods. Go on.
And to all the hosts of heaven.
And to all the hosts of heaven. And to all the hosts of heaven. If I'm not mistaken, they go, actually, yeah, and to all the hosts of heaven. Give me Acts chapter 14. Show you that they worship the planets as gods. Acts chapter 14, verse 12.
Acts chapter 14, verse 12. And when they called Barnabas Jupiter and Paul.
They call Barnabas Jupiter because why? They worship them. They said, wait, Barnabas is Jupiter. And Paul what?
And Paul Mercurius.
And Paul Mercurius. I think Jupiter is Zeus, right? Yeah, Jupiter is Zeus and Mercurius is Hermes, the messenger god. Because why? Paul was doing all the speaking. He was the messenger. So they said, okay, Barnabas has to be Zeus. We're going to call him Jupiter and Paul Mercurius. Go on.
Because he was the chief speaker.
Because he was the chief speaker, meaning he was the messenger god. So that even back during the time of Acts, remember, we was caught up in Greek philosophy. Even during the time of Rome, Greek philosophy and the worshiping of the planets carried over to the Roman captivity, and they just recycled the gods and just called them different gods. So they started worshiping Jupiter or Zeus and gave Barnabas that title, as well as Mercurius, the messenger god, Hermes, and gave that title to Paul. Showing you all throughout the scriptures, the different nations worship the planets, and Israel adopted that customs within a nation. Give me Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 19. That's why it says, one to make one wise. What was pleasant to the eyes, to make one wise. The worship of the constellation, the stars, the sun, the moon, it gives wisdom. It shows you when to plant. It shows you when to fish. High tides. The moon dictates the planet, the waves. Even the moon, the full moon, it said it has to, even with the full moon, I think it has to do with, like I said, a lot of crazy people. That's why they say werewolves come out. That's just mythology. But a lot of people, it affects people's mentality, psychology. They said crazy people come out during the full moon. So there's a vibration that comes from the moon that affects people, that affects the planet. Go on.
Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 19. And lest thou lift up thine eyes unto heaven, and when thou seest the sun and the moon and the stars, even all the host of heaven, shouldest be driven to worship them and serve them, which the Lord thy God hath divided unto all nations under the whole heaven.
So should it be driven to worship the sun, the moon, the stars, as well as the planet, as the nations do? God divided these things under the whole heaven for what? To give service unto man. But man, rather than using the sun, the moon, the stars to give sun light by day and light the moon to give light by night, and Issachar used the stars. It says the 12 constellations, Issachar used that to navigate. There's a book. See, Jazz, hit up Jazz. There's a book to show you that Issachar used the 12. Dang, I didn't think about it. These things are just coming up. These scriptures are not part of the class. So that's why this is coming to my mind. Issachar was able to use the stars to navigate the constellations. So we didn't use it to worship it. We use it to navigate. That's how Issachar knew how to come to the side of the world. They called it the 12 something, the gates or something like that. Issachar was able to read the constellation to navigate to this side of the world. They knew how to read the stars, to make one wise. And that's why when we was escaping slavery, what did they always say? Follow the drinking gourd. Follow the drinking gourd. Da, na, 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 na. Right? Right? You gonna leave me hanging, brother? You know what I wanted to say. You ain't. So they always say, our ancestors used to say, follow the drinking gourd. Get that scene in Jingle too, which says, which one of you know how to read the stars? Because they knew we know how to read the stars. Or they say, follow what? The North Star. I remember they'll say, or look at the Big Dipper or the Small Dipper. So our ancestors knew how to read the stars for navigation. All right? Now, let's go back. What I want. We'll go back to that. Let's go to Jeremiah 31.
Yep. Jeremiah chapter 31, verse 35. Thus saith the Lord, which giveth the sun for a light by day.
So the sun was given for light by day. The sun wasn't given for us to worship them. Read.
And the ordinance of the moon and of the stars for a light by night.
And the ordinance of the moon and the star was only given to us for the light by night, to guide us in the dark. Go on.
Which divideth the sea when the waves thereof roar. The Lord of hosts is his name. If those ordinances depart from before me,
if the sun, the moon, and the stars depart before God, read,
saith the Lord, then the seed of Israel also shall cease from being a nation before me forever.
So if the sun, the moon, and the stars, remember it says the sun, the moon, and the stars was created for the service of man. What man? The service of the Israelite man. The sun was created to give us light by day. The moon was created to give us light by night. Also, there's nothing you can do without the sun. The sun also shines at certain seasons. That's like you have the springtime we're going to go into. In terms of the harvest season, we're able to plant. Why? Because certain season the sun shines more time. It's longer during the day, so that it gives us it germinates our plants, so that we can produce crop and food for the year, for the season, for the springtime, for the summertime, as well as the fall time, the harvest time. So read on.
Thus saith the Lord, if heaven above can be measured, and the foundations of the earth searched out beneath, I will also cast off all the seed of Israel for all that they have done, saith the Lord.
Showing that what? The Israelites are still here. If you can see the sun, if you can see the moon, if you can see the stars, that means the seed of Israel is still here. Because people say that God's not dealing with the Israelite anymore. They're lost. God cast away his people. But if you can see the sun, the moon, and the stars, he said, then I will also, cease, the Israel shall also cease from being a nation before me forever. Then, verse 37, he says, thus saith the Lord, if heaven above can be measured, heaven and space can't be measured, and the foundations of the earth searched out beneath, I will also cast off all the seed of Israel for all that they have done. So that's why they're trying to do space missions to measure the heavens, the space. And that's why they're trying to go into the deep sea, but they can't go to the depths of the ocean. The equipment that they have, the submarines, the equipment that they have can't even go that far because of the built-up pressure. There's a certain level that they go that if they go any lower, it will break and crush the submarines and crush some of the equipment. Crush the what? Crush death. Yes, crush death. And it's certain, and you can't even go. They can't even go to the. Think about it. They can't even go. They're trying to go to Mars. But what about the other planets? So they're trying to measure the heavens as well as measure or go to the depths of the ocean. And God said, if you could do that, then I will cease. Then I will cast off Israel, that they should be a nation unto him. But they can't measure these things. God made it so that they can't. So God will never cast away his people and do away with them, showing that we're still here. And that these ordinances was given to us to serve us. That's why the white people, if you look at white people, when you look at them on a beach, what do you see? The skin starts to pale. They use pounds of tannin, not tannin lotion, sunscreen. They go to the tannin salon because why? The skin is not in an agreement with the sun. The sun actually affects them. The sun actually causes cancer within them. But black people, the sun actually complements us. It complements our skin, our melanated skin texture. It complements us and gives us vitamin D. That's why they try to lock us down and keep us inside, because they understand that, yo, there's nothing we can do to kill these niggas. Damn, we try to poison the water. They still producing babies. Damn, they're not. All right, let's poison the water. Let's poison the food. Let's lock them up. Let's put abortion clinics out there. All right, none of this is working. No matter what we do, what we put in place, you know what? Let's give them condoms. Let's give them diseases. Let's give them AIDS. Everything we do doesn't work. They keep on multiplying. They don't die, but they multiply. We incarcerated them. We lock majority of the black race up. We locked up the black men as well as the Latino men. We destroyed the Native American Indian man. We killed the Indian. We killed Gad. We killed his mindset. And they still produce it. What is it about these people that they just keep on having sex and produce a baby? Because, you know, Israel's lively. Israel gets it in. Israel, you know, lets off once, and then the woman pregnant. Esau got to go to the doctor. They got to freeze their sperm. They got to do all types of things to produce children. Showing, and they complain, damn, how do you guys got 13, 15? You don't see Edomites having, or Caucasians having 12, 13, 17 children. And when they do, they produce shows based upon it. They say they glorify it, but when it comes to us, they say, oh, what are you going to, you're going to take up all the government assistance? You're going to take up all the welfare? But showing you that no matter what they do, they can't kill us off. So they say, you know what? Damn, the virus ain't even killing them off. Let's keep them inside. Let's lock down everybody so that they can't get the sunlight they need to heal them from the disease. Because the sun heals. Think about it. Always say, heat kills diseases. We need, or they give us supplement, vitamin D pills. Why do we need vitamin D pills when the sun is a vitamin D? That's why they keep us inside working all day. Because the sun strengthens us. The sun is in agreement with us. The sun gives us strength. It gives us the vitamins we need. God created the sun for us. They're trying to block the sun from us. That's why Bill Gates wants to block out the sun, the UV rays, because he want to kill us off. Not everything they're doing is not working. God created the ordinance for us. We'll go on. Now go to Jeremiah 33, verse 20.
Jeremiah chapter 33 and verse 20. Thus saith the Lord, if ye can break my covenant of the day and my covenant of the night.
If you could break God's covenant of the sun giving light to us by day, and if you could break God's covenant for the moon giving us light by night, read.
And that there should not be day and night in their season.
Read.
Then may also my covenant be broken with David my servant, so that he should not have a son to reign upon his throne, and with the Levites, the priests, my ministers.
Read.
As the host of heaven cannot be numbered.
As you cannot number the host of heaven, read.
Neither the sand of the sea measured. So will I multiply the seed of David my servant.
Neither can you measure the sand of the sea so that he will what?
So I will multiply the seed of David my servant.
So he will multiply the seed of David his servant. You got it?
The two families which the Lord hath chosen, he hath even cast them off. Thus they have despised my people, that they should be no more a nation before them. Thus saith the Lord, if my covenant be not with day and night, and if I have not appointed the ordinances of the heaven and earth, then will I cast away the seed of Jacob and David my servant, so that I will not take any of his seed to be rulers over the seed of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. For I will cause their captivity to return and have mercy on them.
Showing you, so verse 24, sorry, I got caught up. Verse 24 again.
Considerest thou not what this people have spoken, saying, the two families which the Lord hath chosen.
The two families, southern kingdom as well as northern kingdom, which God chose, read.
He hath even cast them off.
He had to go, the other nations saying, the two families that God chosen, he have even cast them off. The other nations think that God just done away with us. That's why they adopted themselves into the fold. They imposed themselves into us. That's why they call themselves, oh, now, God cast them off. God's not dealing with them. So we're going to take on their nationality. We're going to call ourselves Jews. We're going to call ourselves the Israelites. We're going to call ourselves Christians because God's not dealing with them. God cast both families, Judah as well as Israel. Judah and Ephraim. Go on.
Thus they have despised my people, that they should be no more a nation before them.
Thus, the other nations, every single nation had their hand in our slave trade. They despise us that we shall be no longer a nation before God. That's why they cut us off. That's why they changed our names. They enslave us. They raped us. They incarcerate us. They changed our identity, they gave us their last name, their first names. They erased our history. They don't allow us to go to they taking out our history out of the history books. They taking out slavery out of the school system. They taking critical race theory as well as the 1619 Project out of the schools. Even if we talk anything that's going to make a Caucasian, a white boy, uncomfortable, they say it's going to be a law against that. It's going to be a federal crime. And that's why they removed the statues. They said, read that last part again.
Thus, they have despised my people, that they should be no more a nation before them.
Read on.
Thus saith the Lord, if my covenant be not with day and night, and if I have not appointed the ordinances of heaven and earth, then will I cast away the seed of Jacob and David my servant, so that I will not take any of his seed to be rulers over the seed of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. For I will cause their captivity to return and have mercy on them.
And I will cause their captivity to return, and God's going to have mercy.
We used to scream black power while heroin was pushed. But at the end of the day, nothing's in vain. IUIC has been given a vision. The tents of Judah has risen. Many has attempted the mission. Minor murmuring, omitting, and missing the mark. Just reading that he had the flame of fire in his eyes gave us the spark. We on Paul's mission. We out on the road, purple and gold, from Mexico, Cuba, Haiti, Ghana, Sierra Leone. 144,000 boots banging, concrete crackling. These are our men repented at heart. The scriptures is proof. IUIC, we deliver the truth.